time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at these sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the sports journalist and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Times Northern sports correspondent Martin Hardy. Welcome along to you both. Let's quickly run you through the back pages as we have them. So, back page of The Guardian looks like this. Amorim vows to fight on despite United's struggles. I'm far from quitting, he says. You can see that I feel I want to, still feel like I want to cry. Rory McIlroy talking about that moment on the 18th green at the Masters, and now, of course, preparing for the PGA Championship. The Mirror, back me or sack me, defiant boss Amorim won't walk away from Old Trafford. Nightmare. You can see on the right-hand side there a little column on Spurs and Dejan Kulusevski's injury. Their midfield looking not ideal for United in the Europa League final. And in the Telegraph, Amorim Europa League win would be a poison chalice. Why? Well, because it would mean United have to balance Premier League and Champions League football next season. You can see there Rory McIlroy in full swing ahead of the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow. Back page of the Eye looks like this. I'm not trying to be anyone's best mate, I'm trying to win, says Rory. Yes, it's interesting little rivalry that is developing with Bryson DeChambeau, and it could be reignited in the second major of the golfing calendar. And there at the top you can see Kulusevski, latest Spurs midfielder to miss fire. Welcome along to you at home. Welcome along once again to Henry and to Martin. So let's start off with the back page of The Guardian, gents. And they're heading, I'm far from quitting. Amorim vows to fight on despite United's struggles. Henry, let me come to you first. Is it me, or was it only, well, either a day ago or 2 days ago, that Ruben Amorim was saying that he should be, dismissed if United don't improve next season? Now he's saying, I'm far from quitting. I mean, what do you make of his declarations at the moment? What's your read on it?
I just wish he would focus on talking up his team rather than talking down himself. He's a very good manager. I mean, you listen to the Manchester United fans, they are 100% supportive of him, certainly inside the stadium. We know his record from Sporting Lisbon. He's inherited a bit of a mess that he and the recruitment staff have got to sort out. Manchester United, since Sir Alex left, have had 10 managers, including, 4 caretakers, in all that time, in those 12 years. And that comes, the churn doesn't help. Manchester United need to sort of settle down. And I just wish in his press conferences he would just focus on the positives that he's got in the team, the players who are playing well. Not too many, in fairness, but he can focus on a Lenny Yoro or Bruno Fernandes or one or two of the younger players coming through, not keeping on going on about his own future, because he's a good manager. And all the noises coming out of Manchester United, certainly from high up, is that the board are going to back him. He's got a tactical template of 3-4-2-1, and this squad doesn't really suit that. So he needs a pre-season to work on his players. He needs another summer. Well, he needs a transfer window to bring the players in. So I think he just needs to sort of calm down and focus on the positives.
And if they are going to back him, well, I guess that the headline of the Mirror on the back page, back me or sack me, is kind of redundant, Martin. But here's the thing. They also say Man United's soap opera continues. And I wonder, a week out from that Europa League final against Tottenham in Bilbao, how much of a distraction this could be for United?
I think there's been a need for consistency of message from the Manchester United manager, which hasn't been the case. As a journalist, he's great copy because I think he speaks perhaps too honestly at times. We can all see this Manchester United team is not good enough. It's it's just about officially the worst team they've had in about 35 seasons. He could do with building them a little bit, but for him to keep talking about himself doesn't help the players at all. We are well into his first season now, and this is the 16th in the Premier League with 17 defeats, and that's just not acceptable for Manchester United. The system Henry talks about is Ruben Amorim's way of playing, but it's not the way of playing with these players. And the glorious moments that he's had as manager at Manchester United have been the late comebacks at Everton and Liverpool in the Premier League and in the quarterfinal of the Europa Cup. And you were thinking, is that because of him or is that despite him? Is that when Bruno Fernandes is just going, right, I'm going to take this game by the scruff of the neck and do what I need to do? Manchester United are not in a great financial position. I suspect they would back him anyway. However, I don't actually think they have a choice to say for the second summer running, we're going to back a manager and then 2 or 3 months later pay off this huge dividend to get rid of him and then start this whole process again. I am not personally convinced he is the right man for Manchester United at the minute, but I don't actually think they have a choice. It's interesting, amongst the many things he said, and today he has said, winning the Europa League would not be good for us because we are not ready for the Champions League. Again, I think that's probably brutally true. However, Man United as a club, for its profile and for its financial implications, needs to be playing at that very top level. The idea that there could be 6 English teams playing in the Premier League next season and one of them is not Manchester United, would have been a bit of a joke maybe 10, 15 years ago. But now that is the reality, and they're backing Amorim. I think he needs to be more consistent with his message. At the minute, it's a club that doesn't seem to know which way it's going to get itself through the chaos.
Just picking up on one of those points that you mentioned, Martin, in the back page of the Telegraph, Henry, talking about this, I suppose, if you look at it, here they are in the final of the Europa League. Yes, they can win that and get into the Champions League, but ultimately to try and plot a route long-term to sustained success, actually, his school of thought is, do you know what? Maybe not this season or next season Champions League, maybe one after that. Do you see his logic there? Or do you think, again, it goes back to the inconsistency of message?
No, I think you just sort of have to strip that into 2 parts. They need to win a trophy, otherwise their season is 16th in the table. That's pretty humiliating, unacceptable, as Martin rightly says. They want to win. The fans are going over in their numbers to Bilbao. They absolutely want to win that. Manchester United, I mean, even under Ten Hag, who was roundly criticised, got 2 trophies. So absolutely, it will provide a gloss on this season. And okay, people will say Europa League win will paper over the cracks, but it will still be a trophy. It will still allow them, because they're going into the Champions League, to attract better players, the type of players that he wants in the summer. So I simply don't understand this poison chalice. It's a trophy, not a poison chalice.
Well, it's a trophy if they win the final, but of course that, it depends a lot on Tottenham Hotspur as well, doesn't it? Although, as far as Spurs fans are concerned, when it comes to injury, when it rains, it pours. And Dejan Kulusevski, Martin, is the latest midfielder to miss the final. As it says there at the top of the eye on the back page, Tottenham Hotspur have been dealt a huge blow before next week's Europa League final after midfielder Dejan Kulusevski underwent surgery on his right knee. And of course, it's not just him, it's James Maddison, it's Lucas Bergvall. So how significant a blow do you think this is? Not just because he's a midfielder, but also he has significant experience, doesn't he, Martin?
I think it's a big blow because he's been one of the few guiding lights for Tottenham this season. What are we talking? 10 goals, 11 assists in 50 games. At the weekend, Ange Postecoglou said he didn't think it was a serious injury and he was hoping that he would play. And that kind of boost in terms of who he is, the energy he gives to the Tottenham side, especially on the back of James Maddison being ruled out, would have been a huge boost. I don't think it's the end of the world. We think Son's coming back in real good time for this game. There are still attacking options inside of the Tottenham camp. If there's been one thing Postecoglou has been too stubborn to do, it's to try and kind of change his tactical approach and maybe to be a bit more defensive. And maybe this will be one of these factors ahead of the game that determines he has to do that. It's a strange game we have where in the final we have 20 Premier League defeats for Tottenham. I think 16 or 17 for Manchester United. I think, regardless of how Tottenham do, that Postecoglou is probably the more likely of the 2 managers to leave the club this summer, just because of the backlash that Levy has faced. It's not good news for Tottenham, but it's not quite the end of the world that perhaps it's being portrayed as. And going into that game, we were in a strange situation where 2 teams in a season 5 or 10 years ago would be fighting to stay in the Premier League right now with totals of 38 and 39 points, instead of which one of them's going to win a European competition and play in the Champions League next season. You can flip a coin, I think, for that game to decide who's going to win it.
I mentioned before, Henry, that when it rains, it pours when it comes to Spurs. They have been unlucky this season with injuries, but does Ange Postecoglou maybe need to shoulder some of that, given that he started Dejan Kulusevski against Crystal Palace? He came off after 20 minutes. So, that management of energies and of players, carrying injuries at this point of the season, he's surely, that's going to have a bearing on that.
I thought the headline would have been deja vu, because Tottenham Hotspur fans have seen this all season. I was there on Sunday. I could actually understand Postecoglou wanting to play Kulusevski, because he was returning from an injury. Okay, he I think had 3 starts and 3 sub appearances in his last 6 games, but I think he needed to get minutes into his legs, because he's a really important player for them. He gives you that, was it 6 or 7 goals this season, 4 or 5 assists. He's a very important player for Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, it was a fair challenge, a hard challenge from Mark Gay out wide. And as you say, he tried to play on. He went off, had some medical attention, came back on, and then eventually had to sit down and limp off. But as you say, they have been playing occasionally with 2 sort of more defensive midfielders, Bentancur and Gray. Obviously, Basuma can come in there as well. It depends what mood Postecoglou is in Bilbao. But look, a fit Kulusevski, even a 90% Kulusevski would start. So, yeah, it's a blow.
Martin, briefly, because we want to cover some other stories here, but in terms of this Europa League final, in terms of the 2 teams who are playing it, in terms of Spurs' midfield woes, is it the team who makes the fewest mistakes who ultimately will win this game, rather than the one with the most class, shall we say?
Well, you've had 2, and look, a top manager will be stubborn. They will go to what they know. They've both insisted this is the way that their teams will play, regardless of the personnel, regardless of the fitness of the players. Tottenham have brought some players back a little bit early in their desire to field their strongest team. It's such a difficult game to call. We'll see. The form of the league, we both know, is really, really poor. It might be the start, Bruno Fernandes, maybe the difference between the 2 sides, because he's had a brilliant season, even in a poor team. Whereas if you're looking for the standout for Tottenham, Kulusevski's not there. Son is not quite the player that he was, and he's been out for fitness for quite a while. The thing is, both teams aren't particularly great at defending. It could be an enthralling final, just because they, in all likelihood, they will both go for each other. The city will be full of English fans from the 2 clubs. It'll be an amazing atmosphere. Whether the players feed off that, we hope they will, and we get an amazing game. But as I said, it's a very difficult game to call, just because they are 2 essentially average teams.
4-4 after full time, 6-6 after extra time penalties. I think we're all here for that. Let's move on to a very, very different story, and a bit of a change of gear, admittedly. Back page of the Mail, and a very stark headline here. We are praying for our brother. So this Olaina on his teammate Taiwo Awoniyi, who we all saw at the weekend, that Nottingham Forest 2-2 draw with Leicester, and colliding with the post. Awoniyi, obviously the story at the time was around, whether he should have been subbed, and the confusion there in the Nottingham Forest dugout. But of course now it's moved on to the player himself and the condition he's in, and it really is quite shocking, this detail, isn't it? And it shows how a simple footballing incident, Henry, can result in something really, quite significant and really quite worrying.
Well, first and foremost, I think everyone's thoughts are with Taiwo Awoniyi. I mean, he's a terrific player. He's come on and he's trying to sort of change the game and help Forest get into the Champions League. But he shouldn't have been in this situation. The offside flag should have been raised immediately. Elanga started going. Elanga was almost expecting the offside flag to go up. So absolutely, everyone is concerned about the player, and Olaina's comments there just completely echo that. Their prayers are with their brother, and it's a hugely serious situation, and you absolutely wish him the best. But football has got to take a step back, and this is nothing new. These sort of injuries, we've seen it before. I was at Molineux when Rui Patricio got in it. He collided with Conor Cody when Mo Salah was clearly offside, and play was allowed to go on. We've seen it with John Stones. We've seen it with Ederson. When are IFAB, PGMOL and the FA going to look at this law and the recommendations about it, about when a linesman effectively delays and effectively abnegates responsibility to VAR and a player gets injured, as has happened with Taiwo? I mean, it's wrong, and football needs to look at itself, as well as, first and foremost, worrying about Taiwo Awoniyi.
Martin, again, as brief as you possibly can on this story, and on Henry's point about the offside law and how it's applied and the protocol from IFAB, and your thoughts on that.
one of the errors of VAR, it makes two games of football take place in front of you sometimes, where the game's still going on and you think either A, if the game may be recalled, or we know for a fact that's offside. On this one, listen to the former players, because they are the people that shout the loudest, and they've said this right from the beginning, that players are going to get injuries for absolutely nothing, and there'll be serious injuries. And they've been proved, sadly, on this occasion and on several others, as Henry's correctly said, they've been proved correct.
All right, thank you very much indeed for the moment, guys. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's newspapers, including this in the Sun: Slot flirts with Wirtz. We're back in a couple of minutes. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to sports journalist and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Times Northern sports correspondent Martin Hardy. Right, gents, we're going to switch to golf and back page of the Telegraph. And this is the headline: McIlroy dig at DeChambeau. I wasn't trying to be his mate. This is about Rory supposedly giving Bryson DeChambeau the silent treatment, paired up for that final round at Augusta. And of course, obviously after that playoff drama with Justin Rose, Rory ended up with that green jacket, finally completing the career Grand Slam. Just a general point, Henry, really, on the need for rivalries with just that little bit of edge and something like this in golf, you know, between Rory and DeChambeau. Remember, we've got a Ryder Cup coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fantastic. I think we get an insight into why Rory McIlroy is an elite sportsman. I think he just wants to win. And, you know, this is not a sort of a local golf club medal on a Sunday morning. These guys are playing for the absolute elite honours, the majors. And why should he be his mate? They're rivals. We wouldn't expect boxers who step into a ring to be mates in the ring. We might expect it out of it. I mean, some of the great sports we've seen down the years, you go back to Cohen Ovet, have been rivalries, different characters. I think it's fantastic. And I have to say I'm on McIlroy's side in this one. I think anyone who knows him knows that when he goes out and competes, whether it's on the practice ground, he is just absolutely laser focused. And this is what he is when he's playing against DeChambeau. Why should he be sort of chatting, how's your weekend, how's your family, where are you going for Christmas or where are you going for dinner or stuff like that? It's not a social. This is, they're competing for the majors. So I think all power to Rory.
And the next one is right, around the corner. It starts on Thursday at Quail Hollow. It's the PGA Championship. And I think this is the thing, isn't it, Martin, is that now we've got momentum into the sort of the major season in golf in 2025. We've had the Masters, now the PGA Championship, Quail Hollow. Both of these players have got a great chance. So are you expecting maybe more where this came from? Any more sparks to fly?
I'm not sure the sparks need to fly for McIlroy. It was a really good interview, and inside the interview, to those who spend their life videoing great moments instead of actually living them, McIlroy said he's barely watched it again because all he wants to do is remember the feelings from what was one of the most dramatic bits of sport you will ever see, that final round in the playoff. And when he does remember it, he wants to cry. So to get into that zone where he had it, he didn't have it, he had it again, he didn't have it, and then finally he had it and broke down, he had to shut DeChambeau completely out and kind of find a level of focus that only the very elite players, 6 players, have done the Grand Slam in golf. To get there, he had to close every other element of just about his life and certainly his opponent out of his mind. When you go through the interview, I think Rory McIlroy's in a slightly different place now. He's very much, I've done what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the Grand Slam since I was a child and I wanted to be world number 1. Now I've done them. Whether that makes him even better because that's off his shoulders and he can relax and play a bit more. I'm sure the determination inside him, as Henry said, that fighting spirit will be roused every time he comes up against the very best. But there is something different about Rory McIlroy now in that he's achieved everything he set out to do. Of course, as sports fans, we want to see him go up against DeChambeau all the time and hopefully beat him, which may happen again in this one. The course favours McIlroy, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, he's in a very, very good place at the minute, and it's his kind of course, so you probably wouldn't want to be playing against him.
Let's move to the back page of The Sun. Slot flirts with Wirtz. So this is Florian Wirtz, very, very bright young talent who both Liverpool and Manchester City are interested in. He's had chat already with City. His agent, his dad has. Henry, how critical do you think ultimately this kind of signing is in terms of where he ends up that might affect the power struggle in the Premier League next season? And Liverpool trying to maybe destabilise Manchester City a little bit here?
Or destabilise Bayern Munich, because I think Bayern Munich are favourites for Florian Wirtz, who is a fantastic player. 16 goals and 13 assists in 39 Champions League and Bundesliga games this season. Very versatile player. He can play out wide. He can play probably as a left-sided 10. Often, by Leverkusen, occasionally in a sort of 3-4-2-1 system, which doesn't necessarily suit Liverpool or Manchester City. But a player of his calibre, I mean, we're talking a player touching world-class elite level. I mean, he's an outstanding player. So absolutely, he would enhance Liverpool's attacking options. He would enhance Manchester City's attacking options. And they need one, obviously, with De Bruyne, even though he's in fantastic form, with him leaving the club. So, I mean, I look at the fee and it's 126 million, and that's what it's stated as. And OK, that might drop slightly, but that still seems quite a substantial battle and a chunk of your transfer budget if you're needing to also to strengthen elsewhere. So, yeah, look, you're right. I think whoever gets him will probably be favourites for the title.
Martin, I'm going to get your thoughts briefly on this one. Who would he suit better and why?
That's a nice, easy question to throw at me. Very difficult to answer that, and I genuinely don't know. Pep will undoubtedly make an attacking player better in a more structured environment. Liverpool perhaps do need that. Liverpool's target at the minute, I suspect, is to go further in the Champions League, and he would make them more dynamic, and perhaps that's that little bit that they're missing. What's quite worrying is if you're one of the teams trying to catch Manchester City, is that in this terrible season they're having, which they could finish second, third, fourth, fifth, and win the FA Cup. To counter that, as Henry said, 126 million on this transfer, 50 million on Nico Gonzalez, 60 million on Omar Mamouche, and that would certainly put them. We'll see what happens in the case if that eventually does come to fruition. But it puts them amongst one of the real leaders to win the Premier League next season. And it's 4 out of 4 before this one, 6 out of 7. There was a very good piece by Matt Walker in The Athletic a couple of days ago, going back to Derby County winning the league title in 1975. And I think it was 11 different teams in 14 seasons won the English top division. Now it's very, very difficult to wrestle it up from the control of 2 or 3 different clubs. And when you see an Aston Villa or Newcastle pushing hard to get amongst the top 2 or 3, and then Man City are prepared to spend £250 million in 6 months, it just shows you that gap is so difficult to bridge.
Really, really quickly, if you can, Henry, just a story in Martin's paper, The Times, on Serena Williams' husband, Alexis Ohanian, buying a stake in Chelsea for £20 million. You welcome this kind of investment, especially for the women's section of Chelsea?
We do. Really interesting piece by Martin, 20 million quid, and apparently they're valued at 200 million quid. But we have to remember this is also in a 24-hour period when Blackburn Rovers in the second tier, their owners have taken away their funding from their, very ambitious, and a good, hard-working women's team. So, look, it's not all completely rosy in women's football.
No, that's a really important context to put on that. Henry, thank you very much indeed. And Martin as well, thank you. Really appreciate your insights and your company tonight. If you missed any of the show, then there's another chance to see Backpages tonight at hour. The show also available as a podcast. Just download Backpages on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Join us again on Thursday night. Our guests will be Jonathan New and Ian Ladyman. Well, it has been dramatic at Edgeley Park in the playoff semi-finals between Leyton Orient and Stockport County, and it's the O's who are heading to Wembley.